This is D, and Let's Stress for Life. That's what's up. As we deal with stress management, I have a brother who's a very good authority on stress. In fact, Brother B has worked in the correction system for over 30 years, and he's seen a lot of stressed out brothers. But I wanted to talk with him. I wanted to ask him what are some things that individuals can do in order not to be back involved in the system, or if they are, yeah, if they're in the system, to get out of the system and to stay out of the system. And he came up with a very, very interesting statement. Brother B, what was the statement that you said?
I said a lot of things.
Yes, you did. A lot of wise things.
Trying to remember which exact statement are you referencing?
You talked about default.
Okay. Default.
As we're trying to manage our stress.
Yes, default as pertaining to managing stress. We are all socialized in many different ways. And based on our socialization, we have that, what we call that comfort mode or that default mode, that when we get into challenging situations or stressful situations or seemingly unmanageable situations, that we fall back to, or we default to in the computer lingo. And sometimes that default mode is a very destructive mode, particularly if you're on the inmate side of the coin, because on that side your life seemed to be managed for you in a lot of ways. If you're on the other side of the administrative side, you have policy, you have rules, you have laws that govern your life as you interact with the clientele population. So the default mode works on either side. But I think we're primarily talking about the inmate side of
Inmate
this.
side,
Inmate
yes,
side
sir,
of
yes,
this.
sir.
So the inmates, they come into the system, and some of them are new, some of them are teenagers, some of them are in their mid-20s, some of them are in their 50s, 40s, and sometimes even in their 60s.
Wow.
And their response to stress is quite different, based on the geographical area that they're coming from, sometimes based on the societies that they were socializing, and so the response, sometimes the default mode, is non-productive.
Gotcha.
It brings on more stress in the long run. They don't see it that way,
Right.
but it actually causes more stress in the long run, because the default mode might entail doing things that the system frowns against.
Okay. Like what would be an example of that?
For example, if you are familiar with the system, you can get anything in the system. Mostly anything that you find on the street in terms of mind-altering things. You can find those things in the system.
Okay.
And sometimes that's where they go to get out of, quote unquote, those stressful situations.
So what you're saying is that some of the same things that they did on the outside to manage their mess.
That caused them to be in the mess that they're in presently.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
They maintain that even behind the wall.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And stress comes in many different ways. Maybe the brother or the sister or the client is trying to actually make a change in their lives. However, they are in a situation where, for their own safety, for their own maintenance of life, that might be a challenge. And so,
Gotcha.
you might have someone come up to them and say, "Listen, I don't like what you're doing. I see that you're trying to go in this direction. We don't want you to go in that direction. We have provided this, that, and the other for you. Therefore, we need for you to cease and desist
Gotcha. Yeah.
and come on back to the family or the group."
Gotcha.
And that produces an enormous amount of stress.
Yeah.
You might have a visit, you might have a spouse, you might have a girlfriend, and someone from your group is going to say to you, "Today, you are not going to that visit." That's a very stressful situation.
Wow. No doubt.
Because you understand that if you go to that visit, what's going to happen when you get back? And so now you have to make a choice between seeing your spouse, your girlfriend, your children, or maintaining life.
And your spouse, your girlfriend, your children
Don't
might-
understand that.
Right. Not only do they not understand it, but the thing is, you may not see them. They may only be able to come up once a month or once every 6 months or something like that.
And you are not going to tell them that. How are you going to tell your wife that another man says that you can't come and see her? She doesn't understand.
She
that.
does not
How are you
understand.
going to explain that to your children? Another man say you can't go see your children. She doesn't understand that.
Wow. And that stress right there will cause him, if his default is to mess with drug A or what have you,
Whatever.
mind-altering substance A, then he's going to find mind-altering substance A inside his area some kind of way.
Or become a more hardened criminal. Because now I have decided that because X say I can't do this, I'm going to be X.
Gotcha.
So I can do this
Yes.
when I want to.
You know, as you're saying that, it's funny. I was listening to this story of this one particular individual who went on some major crime spree. He was in a prison in Texas that was notorious for its maltreatment of inmates, and he was first of all that prison was that way, and secondly there was an inmate who just like completely brutalized him, and what he did to exact revenge was he actually murdered that inmate. After he got out, relatives said he was a completely different person.
Yes.
And for the worse.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, you. I mean, I don't know what your audience is, but it's awful because your son comes in and he is a complete son. But when he comes in, he becomes somebody's boyfriend. Not because he wants to,
Right.
but because he's told to and because he's forced to. And now that completely changes his life. How does a young person, teen, 20s, mid-20s, deal with a situation like that?
Yeah.
They become hardened.
And even more solidified in whatever they're using to help them manage their stuff.
Exactly.
30 years you've been in fact, even more than 30 years. I know you've seen many sadly failures, but let me ask you this. How have you seen individuals be successful. Yes, in managing their stuff behind the wall?
Success comes few and far between. Let's just be honest about the whole situation. But there are some successes. And one of the main things that I've observed over the years is mentoring. Mentoring. How is that possible? That is possible when someone decides to make a change and they actually verbalize or vocalize that change to someone other than their peer group in there, because
Gotcha.
you need help from the outside. You
Okay.
need support from quote unquote the staff,
Okay. Okay.
and so they can help you in terms of pointing you. Counselors are very good. They point you in the right direction. They show you where the resources are. They don't do it for you, but they're constant. Some of them are constant encouragement.
You said some of them.
Some of them.
Okay.
Some of them
Okay.
are constant encouragement.
Gotcha.
And you know, if you carefully choose your associations, because there are a few older people who will say, listen, man, the young fellow is trying to make a change in his or in her life. And they will support that.
Gotcha.
They'll
Gotcha.
support that.
It won't necessarily. It
But-
doesn't sound like they're going to spoon feed you.
Oh,
But
no.
it's, right. But
Oh,
it
no.
sounds like they will. They'll give you. They'll toss a bone or something like that, so the person can run with it and try to do something with it.
Right. They will at least give you the benefit of a doubt. And they will actually try to help you. But the moment that you step
Deviate.
away or you go to that default mode,
Back to the default.
that becomes a problem.
Gotcha.
Why? Because nothing is free. You owe them.
Gotcha.
They'll help you at first. And if you maintain that trajectory, they will help you.
Yeah.
They will actually even provide protection so that you can keep going on the path that you choose.
Try to give you a buffer. Okay. Now, once a person gets out, let's say, okay, you have this brother or sister who was there, and I mean, plain and simple, it's like this person, whether this person really worked hard to get out in a successful manner, or just got out, or paroled out or whatever, timed out, and was not necessarily successful, but the person's out and does not want to go back in.
Okay. Recidivism is a thing that is very real. And I mentioned the counselors earlier. Counselors are very important because they're the connection between the inside world and the outside world.
So let me cut you off real quick, or just so basically what you're sharing with me is that the best thing that individuals can do is work within the system.
You have to work within the system.
Okay.
You have to work within the system.
Okay.
Because the system is set up in such a way that you can't work outside the system.
Okay.
The counselors, they are the ones that addresses your primary concerns in terms of a change, in terms of education, in terms of whether you're doing the things that are necessary to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. They're the ones. And so when you get to where you either finish your time or you get to the place where you are paroled for whatever reason, that counselor has to have a conversation with the person who's going to take over on the outside.
Okay.
And every client or every inmate has a binder, has a folder that is kept up to date. And some of that information is passed on to the outside person,
outside, okay.
so they can, have a feel for what they're dealing with.